and welcome to another episode of What Do You Know with Joe. I'm sitting here with the great chef Gale Gand. I'm pronouncing that correct, right?
You are, yes.
Perfect. Gail is
Short
a
and
great.
sweet.
I love it. It's perfect. It's a great name. Gail is a great chef, a pastry chef, amongst other things. She's an author, entrepreneur. She does so many things. She wears a lot of hats, pardon the pun. And we're very excited to talk to you. Gail, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me on. Really nice to get to know you and spend some time with you.
I'm really excited. This is a profession that I haven't really had a chance to dive into yet, so I'm really excited. Love, who doesn't love food, but then who doesn't love dessert as well, and I'm trying to really learn a lot about it. So we'll start all the way from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us about where you're from. You're born in Illinois, correct? You were born in Illinois. What was it like?
Basically a suburb of Chicago.
Okay.
I grew up in Deerfield, which is about 30 miles north of Chicago. So, our dads worked in the city and we went to good public schools out in the suburbs. Though my dad was like a little different.
Okay.
When he was about 40, he quit his white collar job and became a folk singer.
Cool.
So I'm kind of raised by wolves. And as a kid, we had like a little family band, the Gand Family Singers. I was 6, I think, the first time I was on stage performing with him. My brother was 9. And I guess my dad, I don't know how old my dad was, but we played at the University of Chicago Folk Festival. Was the first time we ever played.
That's cool.
And I always joke that we were like the Von Trapp family singers, but without the Nazis, so we could travel freely throughout the country. and we did. And I missed a lot of school as a kid. We went to the Arkansas Folk Festival every year. Maybe you saw me at the North Carolina Fiddlers Convention one year. So we just, wherever my dad could get a gig, we brought our instruments and we played. So
that's awesome.
Kind of unusual childhood.
Sidebar to that, what instrument was yours?
Well, anything stringed really. So mandolin, dulcimer, auto harp, guitar, banjo, ukulele, but all acoustic stuff.
Do you still play? Do you still?
I play the guitar a little. I do one song a year, which is I do a birthday song for my husband once a year as a gift instead of giving him more stuff because we have a lot of stuff. We do a song for him. So I have one performance a year, but mostly I just still play the ukulele, mostly because you could bring it on a plane and nobody hassles you.
That's a good point. They're small and compact. You can get them anywhere. I like that. That's really cool. What another, cool facet of Gale. So, how did your passion for cooking or baking kind of get started? Like when in your life did that kind of make its way in and you kind of were very interested in it?
Well, as a kid, I always baked with my mom, which is sort of typical, of what children do with their mom. They spend time in the kitchen, but it really bonded us. My mom was a pie baker.
Okay.
And sort of like the neighborhood pie baker. No one else dare even make one on the street. Like a street, party going on. Turns out it was because she had really bad circulation, so cold hands.
Oh.
She could handle the dough without it, melting in her hand.
Sure.
So she did these elaborate, like lattice top cherry pies, and she let me help. And we had this rolling pin that was her grandma's rolling pin. So my great grandmother's rolling pin, which I have now. I can even grab it and show you if you want. But
that's cool.
So there was this, the time that I got to spend with my mom was time in the kitchen making pies. So I always kind of had I associated baking with connection and love. But it wasn't interest professionally for, till college, really. I went to art school for my Bachelor of Fine Arts. I have a background in silver and goldsmithing. I started doing that in high school. I was a jeweler and a diamond setter.
That's also cool.
Cool job, along with working at my dad's music store. So as I went to art school, though, I started waitressing because you're a starving artist.
Sure.
And one day, I was like 19 then, and I worked at this restaurant in Cleveland. And one of the line cooks didn't show up for work, which, means he's dead. Because in my business, you don't call in and like, oh, I need a mental health.
No, right, exactly.
Like either you're in jail or you're dead or you're at work.
Something
so
right.
This guy doesn't show up for his shift, and my manager looked at me and said, "Gale, can you cook?" And I'm like, no, I'm from the North Shore of Chicago. You know, we make reservations. Like, it was sort of, we didn't have the term white privilege back then, but I was basically trying to express that.
Mm-hmm.
And she threw an apron at me and she said, you can cook now, get in the kitchen. So
Wow.
basically I was like forced in. Like I always say, I didn't choose this. Like, it chose me,
Mm-hmm.
and it will not let me go for some reason. But I got in the kitchen. I'd never cooked professionally, but I give great waitress. Like, I really love describing the food, and I knew what was steamed and what was fried and what had, you know, sesame oil in it. And because you got to know all that stuff.
Right.
So I get in the kitchen and I'm terrified for like 5 or 6 seconds.
Huh.
And then suddenly, and I get choked up when I talk about it still, I had this sense of calm come over me, like I had found my home.
Wow.
Like I was speaking a foreign language I was fluent in, but I don't remember ever learning that language. Right. And I just felt so at home, almost like how people describe a calling.
Sure.
And I loved it. And after that night of service, I ran back to my apartment. I'm a freshman in college, right? My musician dad has just paid for college. I run home. I call my parents. I'm like, I figured out what I want to be. I want to be a chef.
Uh-huh.
My dad goes, oh, Gay, you know, it's not a very reliable business.
Oh, no.
And I said, you're a folk singer.
Valid point. Great
and he goes, I agree with that. He goes, and a jazz trumpet player. I'm like, that makes it worse. How does that help? So he was disappointed and didn't really want me to go into it. He had just paid for college. He really wanted a college grad daughter. My brother had dropped out of high school. He's a professional musician, so he wasn't going to college. So I honored my dad and I did finish college, but the whole time during it, I was working in restaurants. And pretty much as soon as I got out, I started, you know, doing that full time.
So how did you, and wait, when you went to, so how did you go from in Cleveland in Ohio going to like Rochester and like going to like, was RIT the school you were just talking about, or is that?
No, so CIA was the school I was talking about, which is not the Culinary Institute. No, it's not. It's the Cleveland Institute of Art. So I go there for 3 years. It's a 5-year program. I go for 3 years and I decided it's too conservative for me. I need a more progressive school. And Albert Paley, who's this cool sculptor from Rochester, was doing a artist in residence week at CIA. Okay. And I started talking to him and he's like, you should come to RIT. Like, we are doing super progressive stuff here. We're using all kinds of mixed media. We've got great teachers. There's a guy from the Bauhaus there. So I transferred to RIT halfway through my college, but got waitlisted a year. So during the year I got waitlisted, I went to France for the first time.
That's cool.
Got to stage at a bunch of cool restaurants, slept in my car, had no money, you know, was broke. And then came back from France even more committed that I wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. But like promised my dad I'd finish college. So I did. So I went for 2 years at RIT, School for American Craftsmen, studying metalsmithing.
Wow.
And blacksmithing too.
Wow. It's just a jack of all trades. Like that's also really cool. Like that. Thank you for explaining that also and correcting me. I do really appreciate that. So then you're at RIT, or while you were there, how did you make the transfer to, because now you're kind of after school, how did you make the transfer to like New York City, but also in England with the first 2 places you were working at, the Gotham Bar Grill and then Stapleford Park?
Right. So when I lived in Rochester, I worked for a chef like after school, you know, after hours. I worked at the University Club. Then I worked at the Strath Allen Hotel in Rochester. Mm-hmm. And then I sort of like anyone who's in Rochester and is serious about their career, where you want to go is New York. You know, that's, sure. And my chef, Greg Broman, had worked in New York, and he's like, you got to go to New York. Like, Rochester's nice, but you got to go to Manhattan. So I went. I was going there just to like go to a gallery opening of a girlfriend of mine who was showing her work. And I thought, while I'm there, I'll job hunt. And in the 2 days I was there for the weekend, I think I went on 12 interviews, got offered 1 stage, and after the stage got offered the job. And it was Jams with Jonathan Waxman, who's a celebrity chef. Yeah. So I accepted the job. 2 weeks later, I moved to New York. At the job interview, one of the grill guy was like, "Hey, you need an apartment? Because my friend needs to sublet." Like the whole thing just like fell into place.
Right, it worked out.
So 2 weeks later, I moved to New York, and I'm working there. And then a couple friends want to come too that worked at the Strath Allen. Also, they're like, we want to go to New York. I'm like, okay, I need roommates. You know, on my apartment is expensive. It was $500 a month. I could hardly afford it. So 2 of my friends joined me from the Strath. I got them interviews at a bunch of different places, and one of them, the Gotham Bar and Grill, was hiring. So Rick Tremonto was one of the friends that came, and Mary Schoenlein was another. They both interviewed. Rick interviewed at a bunch of like classic French places, but they wouldn't talk to Mary because she was a woman. They're like, we don't need any women in our kitchen. But the Gotham Bar and Grill would talk to her. I think she actually came to work at Jam's first and then maybe went to Gotham. So like slowly we all kind of moved over to the Gotham.
Okay.
And it had just opened. Alfred Portali was the chef. Barbara Kafka was the consultant for it. And they needed a pastry chef. And Rick said, hey, you know, I've got one of my roommates is a pastry chef. And I went over and interviewed with Alfred and he hired me. And within about a month of being there, we got written up in the New York Times. We got the 3-star review, which, you know, tripled business overnight. I was always running out of everything. So that was how I came to work at the Gotham Bar and Grill, it was just like the best time. You know, Brian Miller just said nice things in the New York Times about my work. And it was great.
It's like you said, when things fall into place, you know, it's hard to believe sometimes, and you're thankful for the moment. Kind of taking a break for a second. I have more questions, but like, what would you say, you know, about the industry, about this point in your career, what's going on? What is one piece of maybe like hearing all these stories, like advice you would give to someone either going into this or like something like a behind the scenes, like maybe people at this point don't necessarily know. I'm sure there were times like during you leading up to the Gotham that like there were, you know, it wasn't necessarily always easy, or like you did come up with, there were unnecessary obstacles, let's call them, that were in front of you that like you had to, you know, overcome, things like that.
I think one of the main things that has really served me well that I would encourage people to do is just always say yes. Like I remember my chef saying, Gale, do you know how to make croissants? I had never made them before, but I said, yes, chef. Of course I do. I went home that night. I made 7 batches from 7 different books that I had. I stayed up all night.
Wow.
The next morning when I show up at work, my chef, Greg Broman's like, oh, about those croissants you said you could do. Can you, you know, knock some out? I'm like, absolutely. You know, and now I knew how, because I had taught myself. It took me 12 hours and, you know, no sleep. But I just always find if you say yes, you will figure it out.
Right.
You know, you're smart. You come through for yourself. And I really learned that about myself, that, you know, if you kind of put yourself in a situation where you have to rise to the occasion, you do.
Right.
You really do. So just say yes, even if you know, have never done it before, just always say yes. And then you'll figure out how to make it happen.
I like that a lot. I think I was talking to a buddy who's currently working overseas in Amsterdam, and he was like, the biggest thing that's got me through a lot of this is just saying yes to things and figuring out how I'm going to do it, because I can do a bunch of other stuff. It's just a good mentality to have, because you'll find yourself in situations that you may not have thought before. So I like that a lot. That's awesome. So like, when did you start kind of getting the idea? How long were you at Gotham before maybe you kind of start getting the idea of doing something on your own? And kind of just like growing something like that.
I mentioned that a couple of friends, you know, came with me.
Right.
So Rick Tremonto was one of them, and he and I fell in love, and we wanted to have our own place, but we didn't really know exactly how to do it. We worked in New York for a year, and then our chef Greg Broman in Rochester was opening his own restaurant, and he asked us if we would come back to help him do that. And we said, yes, as long as you like show us the books and let us come to every meeting and learn about like, how much is the electricity deposit? Like, teach us how to open a restaurant. So we did that for a year with him. Opened up this restaurant, Chappelle's, was fantastic. And then, you know, just knew that we wanted to have our own place. but also wanted to kind of learn and make mistakes on other people's money. Was
Right.
the idea.
I believe great mentality. Right.
So we moved to Chicago, which is where my family was, and started working for Rich Melman at Let Us Entertain You, and actually became part of a SWAT team that just opened new restaurants.
Okay.
So we were doing opening after opening after opening. It's
Wow.
like you set it up, you design it, you set it up, you train everybody, and you like tiptoe out the back door.
Yeah.
You rest for a week, and then you go do another one. And we
Okay.
just did like opening after opening after opening, and really learned from Let Us Entertain You how to open a restaurant.
Interesting.
And then we're like, we want to, someday have our own. I think we went to England then.
Okay.
It was a friend of Rich Melman's who needed a chef for his country house hotel.
Okay.
And we were recommended. So we got hired for that gig. They got us work papers. We spent 3 years in England working.
Whoa, cool.
2 of them at the country house hotel, got a Michelin Red M, which was like a big deal for an American.
Mm-hmm.
And then worked 1 year in London proper. And also like he would send us to his restaurant in Barcelona or his restaurant in Paris. Wow. And we were like troubleshooting and fixing broken restaurants for him. And at that point, it's like, well, we've like made enough money for other people. Like we want to start having our own place. So we came back to Chicago. We met sort of just like through a matchmaker, like a restaurant matchmaker. We met Henry Adania. He wanted to have his own restaurant too. And he was front of house. So he's looking for a chef. And we were a chef couple. I think by that point we were probably even married, and we decided to do a restaurant together. It was called Trio.
Yep.
We opened Trio in '93, I believe it was.
Wow.
And that was sort of the restaurant that really got us attention. We were in Art Culinaire. We were, got top 10 best new chefs from Food and Wine magazine, from Julia Child, just all kinds of accolades from that experience. And then did a second restaurant, Brasserie Tea. Then we did a bakery. And wrote our first book and had a kid, had a baby. It was like the year of the bees, the bakery, the brasserie, and the baby in the book. And then we kind of had a falling out with Henry and lost our fine dining restaurant. And Rich Melman came to us and said, hey, you want to open one with me? And we're like, yeah. So then we started working on True, which was our fine dining fancy pants restaurant.
Sure.
It took us 2 years to build. We opened it in 99.
Oh my goodness. You guys were busy in the 90s. It's crazy. You guys
it was crazy. We were always busy, and we were like waiting to have kids till we weren't busy. And then I realized like we're always
right.
busy. Yeah. So we opened True in 99, got, 4 stars right away, got Wine Spectator, award for our wine list, got James Beard, like the whole thing. And within a year, I got a call from the Food Network to do a show. It had sort of, what led up to that though was we did our first book in 96.
Yep.
Called American Brasserie. And back in those days, when you had a book come out, you went on book tour.
Right.
So you travel, you did like morning news shows and okay. And we were on Food Network just to hawk the book. And after that, they invited me back to do a couple other shows. There was like something called Chef du Jour. There was Baker's Dozen. They were like week-long shows. And there was Ready, Set, Cook, which Rick and I competed against each other. So we did some TV.
Yeah.
And then I started being on Sarah Moulton's show once in a while.
Wow.
And I loved cooking with Sarah because she was as short as I was. So her countertops were
it was perfect.
Like 3 inches lower than normal. So I felt like comfortable for the first time in a place. My elbows weren't like up in the air when I was chopping. So I would, every time I was in New York, like every 2 or 3 months, I would call and say, I'm going to be in New York. And they'd put me on Sarah's show. And this went on for like a year or more. And one of the times I called and said, hey, I'm going to be in New York. And I actually wasn't going to be in New York. I just was saying I was going to be there to get booked. Like, I'm going to be in New York. And I thought I'd call you first, because my calendar's open and I want to let you have first choice. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't have anything for you.
Wow.
really, because like I'm gonna be there and I wanted to, let you have first pick at my calendar. Like I didn't let it go.
Yeah.
And they like, nope, we don't have any time for you on Sarah's show.
Huh.
And I thought, wow, like who did I piss off?
Sure, right? Like who, right.
And then there's this pregnant pause on the phone. And then they say, we don't have anything for you on Sarah's show because we want to offer you your own show.
Oh my gosh.
And I want to scream, right?
Yeah.
Apparently at Food Network, I have a reputation of being a tough businesswoman, because what I said was, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. And like kind of blow them off. Not because I'm blowing them off, but I want to scream.
Right,
Scream
right.
oh my God,
I'm so excited.
And I didn't want to be, so I like wanted to get off the phone, just like scream. Right. So that was how I got my show. Like I didn't try out or, send a tape or any of that kind of stuff. It was because I had been on so much on other people's shows, and they were like, I wonder if people would want to watch cake decorating and dessert making. Like, they didn't have any of that yet. I was the first ever all dessert, all pastry show on Food Network. And that's how I got my show, which was just, awesome. Which then like book sales double. I think I came out with my second and my third book, and like reservations, seats, butts and seats in the restaurant. It was just a great thing.
So 3 things that, like, first off, that sounds amazing, but like 3 things I'm curious about. One, what's like back to like when you open your businesses, what's one thing that you like found out about like starting your own business, starting your own restaurant, that you're like, that's crazy. Like that, I would have never guessed that was part of the process of like starting a restaurant or doing something. Was there something that like while you're going through it, you're like, that is the wildest thing?
All I can think of, 2 things. One is when I was negotiating leases.
Oh, okay.
It was always me and like 8 men, like a bunch of lawyers and a landlord. And I found it helpful that if I swore early in the conversation, which made them uncomfortable, I had a lot more power and I had a lot more negotiating power.
Yeah.
Because it's that weird thing in the restaurant business where as a woman, you kind of need to be tough.
Yeah.
Not need people's help, be able to reach stuff on your own. And I think I developed sort of like a macho persona that I would put on when I was negotiating leases, because it was, me and 8 guys.
Yeah.
The other thing, this is just sort of general advice, but it's, sort of the idea that you're much more likely to get what you want if you ask for it than if you don't ask for it. And I know that sounds obvious, right? But there are a lot of people out there like, oh, I just don't want to ask,
No, I agree.
What if they say no? Like there's this weird thing where people will identify a desire or a want or a goal, and then somehow don't feel deserving enough to ask for it. And I feel like if you're sensitive enough to identify some kind of need or desire, you deserve to ask for it.
Agreed.
And you never know, like you might get it. And there's a much better chance of you getting it if you ask than if you don't.
Completely agree.
That was sort of became important.
I completely agree with that. Another friend of mine, we talk about it all the time, is like, but did you ask? Like, worst case scenario, you're in the same position you started with. So like if you don't, what's the worst that could happen when you ask? And I do agree with you. It is, you would think it's obvious, but I've been with people that they just think of it, but then they're like, they just start jumping to the, well, what ifs, what nots. And I get that. And like, that's what, that does exist, the unknown, and it's scary, but
and I think
you gotta jump sometimes.
A cultural thing that for some reason we're raised to think like, oh, I don't want to ask too much. Or I have a friend who I'll be like, did you ask? And they're like, well, I hinted. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's, then you're relying on someone else to be like sensitive enough to
figure out, try to what you meant or what was it. And it's tough.
Yeah. Just be straight, and I think some of that, I learned that from Julia Child. Like she just was, so frank and so straight and so honest. And almost in a naive kind of way. Like she didn't
Yeah.
even realize she was doing it. So it was very charming. It was, delightful.
That was gonna be my next question, and
Oh.
like kind of leading into it was like you went on her show, right? And so like, what was she like? And obviously that, but like, was there anything else you learned from her, or so like when you got to meet her, and it was kind of like off camera? Did you learn something from her, or pick up on something like I never knew that about her? Like that's really interesting.
Well, the first time I spent time with her was actually at the Aspen Food and Wine Classic when I got my top 10 Best New Chefs award.
Okay.
And one thing I was like complaining about who chose Aspen for a food and wine festival because it's
Right.
the
Right.
Mile High City, and it's like high altitude, and for baking it's terrible. And I was walking with her to dinner ragging about like,
Oh,
God,
no.
who chose this location? This is
And it was
like a
Martha.
horrible place for a food and wine festival. And she goes, oh, me and Robert Mondavi chose it.
Oh my
Like,
gosh. Oh no.
sorry about that.
That's funny.
Yeah. But she was very curious. She always wanted to know like people's backgrounds and
Yeah.
what got them into cooking, who inspired them. When Rick and I were first talking to her about that, she used to hold court at the Jerome Hotel in Aspen the night before you got your award, and like find out who these young whippersnappers are and where they come from and what makes them tick. And she asked me where I went to culinary school, and I had gone to La Varenne in Paris for like 2 summers, but I didn't go to CIA. I didn't have a degree from a culinary school. And I said, oh, I'm self-taught. And she goes, never say you're self-taught. Always say you learned in the field. So
I like that.
That was what I was supposed to. I learned in the field.
That's a great piece of advice. I learned in the field. I'm going to keep that up. And then, so you hinted at it at the end, or when you're talking about it. So you've got your own show now on Food Network. And again, I have some other questions down the road too, but last thing kind of really, was this Sweet Dreams? Was this the show?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was on
Pioneer
show before that.
Right. So Pioneer, because like you said, there's never been a show like this. You were the first woman to host their own baking show, right? Or
well, I was the first all dessert, all pastry show.
That's what it was.
On Food Network. So I don't know about the woman part. I'd have to look back.
I'll have to double check.
Sarah Moulton.
Oh, that's right. No, that's right. Okay.
And she was live. She had like 2 hours in a row. That she had her own studio there at Food Network.
Okay. So still though, first of all, tell me about like for those who don't know what Sweet Dreams was and how it went, and what you kind of learned from that whole experience too.
Right. Sweet Dreams was a half-hour baking show. We usually did 3 recipes per show. 30 minutes of TV is really 22 minutes of TV, and then the rest is
right.
So in the beginning, I had guests on sometimes. They weren't sure if I could carry the show by myself, but then it was apparent I could. And I would, each show had a theme, and I'd cook 3 recipes having to do with that. The challenge was you didn't want all 3 recipes to be like cream the butter, add the sugar, grease the pan. Like we had to do one recipe that was stovetop and one recipe that was in the oven, and one that was frozen. So you're trying to show different techniques, different parts of the kitchen. Just teaching people how to bake. And really what my goal was to cook in front of people to help them feel like they could do it.
Yeah.
Like if I can make eclairs in 22 minutes, you can do it too.
Sure.
And it was to hold people's hands and demystify baking and pastry, because it is, it's physics and chemistry. There's a lot of that. But it also was really fun. And I just wanted to give people the same joy through cooking that I get. So I wanted to just make this is easy, and let me, tell you what parts matter. Like if you're making pie crust and, you're afraid you've got a fear of pie crust, I can tell you the 2 things you're probably doing wrong, and it'll come out perfect every time. So I was giving these skills to people to get them in the kitchen so they could cook and cook for others and connect with others, in a way that nothing else does except food. I mean, food really is this connection because it satiates people. I feel like I could solve world peace if I could just like make dinner for a bunch of those world leaders.
I believe it. I 100% believe it, because you're absolutely correct. Like, nothing quite gets people together like food does, in the sense of you can be doing anything, but like it brings people together, and I think there's a way to get over things with that.
Yeah, and it brings people together. I'm like, I used to do weddings at True, and they, you know, it'd be like a family who was inviting that uncle that no one speaks to anymore.
Right.
But you get them to the table, and you're celebrating some, you know, pinnacle moment in the family's life, and suddenly they can't remember why they were so mad at each other.
Exactly.
You know, like, why did we change our name from, you know?
Right.
So I've seen it happen. I've seen split up families rejoin at the table over food.
It's beautiful. It really is. And it's a testament to what you do, and like the art behind what you do, and kind of on the same realm, because like you've been so successful, right, with opening restaurants, having your own show, you know, what you did to get there. How did you get into like you know, cookbooks and writing and being an author? Because that's also another feat in itself. Like you said, I'm sure that whole industry has changed through your career, you know, throughout the chef, like what a cookbook looks like today. How did you kind of get into all that, and what kind of sparked that influence?
I mean, honestly, it was Rick Tremonto. He really wanted a book, and our relationship was such that he would set goals, and it was sort of my job to make them happen. Like, that was just what our relationship was. So I think, and I mean, what really happened was, I think Rick told Bobby Flay, who was a friend of ours at the time, that we wanted to do a book, and Bobby introduced us to his book agent.
Oh my goodness!
So, which is, you know, such a what a dude to do that, right? So he introduced us to his book agent, and we brought an idea. We had Trio at the time, and we, you know, brought photos of our food, and and she took one look at it, and she's very New York. She was like, "Yeah, that's okay, but what else do you got?" And we were about to open the brasserie, and it's like, well, we've got this brasserie we're going to do, and it's like roast chicken and, you know, Caesar salad. And she's like, yeah, tell me more. I can sell that. Yeah, well, let's do that. So she felt like there was an audience out there for our more casual food initially, which was not what Rick wanted. He wanted, like, you know, to do the rare air lofty stuff, but we got to do that later. We did.
Okay.
So it was more, Rick wanted a book. We also wanted to like record what we were doing. We wanted to be able to share our food with people who couldn't come to Chicago. So if you buy the book, like, you kind of have a little piece of us. And from there, it was just, you know, every 2 years I wrote a book. We wrote books. I think we ended up with 8. Rick's got more than that, but I have 8 that I was a part of. Oh my goodness.
And I feel like a cookbook also, like, especially, I think once I got my own house and my wife and I moved in, I think I grew appreciation more for a cookbook, just because, like, you realize as you're going through it, even if it's something from like a family or like you buy, like, you just start looking through and you're like, that would taste really good, or like, that would be really, really delicious. Like, for some reason it clicked more. So like, I feel like it's a true appreciation for, like, also like like we said before, kind of like bringing everyone together, like bringing it home. It's like one of those things where, like, we could find something together that we both think would be good, and let's try that, let's cook that. And I think it's part of the awesomeness of a cookbook.
I mean, I know it's a book and it's more an instructional book, but it is storytelling in a way.
I agree.
You know, recipes have history. I get inspired by a lot of heirloom recipes from my family that I you know, find and feel connected to. So when people are cooking from these books, it's really, you know, they're creating something, but they're also storytelling at the same time.
I completely agree. No, it 100% is storytelling in a way, because of how they got their story and how it grew. And there's a lot that just goes more into a recipe than just, like you said, there is, I mean, you're following steps and instructions. Right. There's stuff that goes into that is a story.
When I was writing our first book, Jane, our agent, she's like, you know, make sure you make the head notes interesting, because she said 60% of all people reading a cookbook are reading it on the toilet. So like, not everyone's cooking from them. Some people are just like reading it for pleasure. So it it is a literary piece,
Agreed.
that you're writing.
I definitely agree with that. And other two questions I had, one, away from, right, like, I know, like, it's probably, and I think that's one of the most interesting things of being a chef is that it's one of those interesting jobs, how you blend it with home and, your profession is, away from cooking, what do you, or like from the kid, like what you do full time, what are some things that you do, like hobbies or away from it that, you get some Gale time and you get to relax and you get to hang out a bit? Or is it just full time 24/7 always going?
Well, it can be full time, 24/7 if you let it.
Sure.
You have to like tame that beast and just learn how to, say no. I remember like I would try to, leave the restaurant at like 11 o'clock at night just to turn it off for a few hours. I was driving home one night from True, and my manager calls me and she's like, Gale, Keith Richards just walked in.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way home. Like I actually say no, like I don't go back.
That had to take a lot because wow, like that's and which I give you a lot of credit for because like a lot of people would have turned the car
right.
around.
But it's just
easy
like
in that
you have to kind of set some limits for yourself. And I feel like I'm the poster child a bit for women chefs because I have been able to be married. I've had kids. Rick and I were married for 12 years, I think it was, and then stayed working together beyond that. And we both remarried. I've been married now to my current husband for 20 years. I was married before Rick too. So probably been married 3 times. I have my son Gio with Rick.
Yep.
He's 28 now. And then I have twin girls who are
wow,
with my current husband. So I've been able to like have kids, have a home life, have house plants that don't die.
Yeah.
I actually, there were certain years in my life where I tricked my kids and I was somehow home making dinner a lot of nights. Like they didn't even realize that I work a night job.
Yeah.
I think I was doing a bakery for a year or two. And so I'd go to work at like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Bake off everything. I'd come home from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. while they woke up and were getting ready for school.
Yep.
And bring like viennoiserie for them, bring croissants and stuff hot, get them off to school and then go back to work. So it's a juggling act. It was a constant juggling act, but I loved the work and I loved being a mom and I loved my family and, I like walking my dog. So I kind of was able to have it all somehow.
It's fortunate, but I also can imagine like if while either your daughters or your son were going to school and you had just brought them something back and they brought to school like their friends being like, that looks really good. That looks delicious.
Yeah. I was the mom, it's like having Martha Stewart for a mom. Like I was the mom sending stuff to every class. I was actually in class doing like cooking demos in the French class or in the physics class or, anytime I could get in the classroom, I would. And I would do a cooking demonstration every year, especially like with Gio, like in his first grade class, his second grade class. When he was a senior in high school, they had a like senior symposium and they had me come to do a cooking demo. And it was like 300 kids there.
Yeah.
And I said to the group, I'm like, how many of you have cooked with me before?
Oh, that's a good question
and like 95% of the room raises their hands, and I started crying, and I
that's
I was
awesome.
like, Maddie, when did we cook together? She's like, oh, second grade, we made crepes, and then I'm like, Ryan, when did we cook together? He's like, oh, you did that gingerbread house in our 5th grade. Like all these kids,
awesome,
had cooked with me because I showed up at the class. So. Just having that relationship and being that mom, along with, a television career and a restaurateur, it's been great. It's just been so great.
That's awesome. So, and it could be a heavy question, but I'm curious, like right now, what are you doing right now? And like something you're looking forward to, or maybe like you got coming up, like what's going on with Chef Gale right now in today?
Well, no garden's done for the season. I do like to garden, so that's something I do in the summer months. I I went to Amsterdam and the Netherlands and Germany in April, and I ordered a bunch of bulbs from Holland.
Wow.
So about a week ago, I had to get those all in before the frost, before the weather got cold here.
Nice.
And now I have to remember like where I planted them to see if they actually come up. But I do like to garden a lot. During COVID, I had backyard chickens for 3 years.
Whoa.
So that was a really fun and interesting thing. And it gave me somewhere to show up, someone needed me every day. I don't have them now. A coyote, like,
oh no,
4 minutes took the whole block. But mostly I'm teaching. I do cooking classes in a couple locations near where I live.
That's
and
awesome.
then I also travel to do food and wine festivals. Like I just came back from San Diego Food and Wine Festival.
Cool.
So I still travel to do appearances.
Awesome.
And then teach locally.
That's really cool. I'm glad you're still doing stuff. I think you have so much to like offer and so much value that I think that a lot of people could soak up and would, even like you said, I'm sure that person in 2nd grade who cooked with you where you made crepe to this day still remembers that, just because it does make an impact and it does last. I'm sure like you just have a lot of value to provide. So I'm glad you're still doing all that. That's really cool. Is there, I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to think too. So this question, it's a different question, and I feel like you're going to play along with it. So like, I appreciate it because I sent you these before, and I'd tell you, I've asked this question to everybody. It's just a silly question just because, why not? So I try to paint the picture like that scene from Step Brothers where they're at the playground, but in a situation where like, I don't know if maybe you're teaching a class or something's happening, but a bunch of 5th graders try to come at you. How many do you think you can take down before they overpower you? Because I'm very curious to get your take on this.
That was such a funny question when I read that. Well, see, I think I would kind of get them off me with food. Like I'd start throwing chocolate truffles and they'd like try to catch them in their mouths.
You can do that. I'll give you that. You can do that. I like it.
I have a secret weapon.
Yeah.
Which is chocolate.
I like the idea when like guests that I talk to bring in their own piece with it, because like I think that's a big part too. So do you think after you truffle them up, they're feeling a little, maybe they're a little bit, it's sitting with them. They're like, oh, that was a lot. Where's your ballpark number? You thinking like anywhere between like 5 to 10?
No, I was thinking like a dozen, like a baker's dozen.
I like it. I like the tenacity. I mean, that's still a respectful number. But like 12, 13, that's still respectful. I mean, I've heard all the way up to like 25 before, and I think that's a little too much.
I'm sure. I don't have a lot of stature. So.
It's tough too. 5th graders are nasty. They get after it. So I appreciate you answering that question. It's just a little bit different, but it's fun. I found that this question next to can be a little bit, it's hard to answer necessarily, but I'd be very curious it doesn't necessarily have to be in your profession, but it can be. It's up to you. Who do you think someone would be fun for me to talk to and maybe learn more from, or like get a great perspective on how they think and interpret their view of the world? Who's someone you think is just an interesting individual?
I think you should interview my brother.
Oh, that would be fun.
So his name is Gale Gand.
Gale Gand. Okay.
He's a blues guitarist.
Okay.
He spends a lot of time in Palm Springs, California.
Okay.
And he still plays out. He's got a band called the Gale Band, but he also has a lighting and sound company.
Cool.
And he's worked with like everybody in the industry, and he's just a super interesting, smart guy.
Cool. I'll have to reach out to Gary, or I'll ask you to, like, if I can't find a way, I'll ask you what's the best way to contact him.
And he's funny. He's super. He's like funnier than me. It's
hard to beat, Gale. You're a funny guy. Appreciate it. What's something I like to bring this up to, just because it's, I think important thing I like to do on my show is make sure that everyone I think has something either that's near and dear to them, or that they do that they think is really interesting and they would love to share. So is there anything you're really passionate about, or like it's kind of my opportunity to give you a soapbox, so to speak, stand on? What's something that either like maybe you're really passionate about or wish other people knew more about, or like a group or something like that you wish some more individuals knew what it was?
Right. I was thinking about it. If you had asked me that 2 years ago, I would have talked about World Central Kitchen.
Okay.
Because I went to Poland and Ukraine to cook with them. Okay. And Jose Andreas is a friend of mine. He's been a friend for 20 years. So before he even did World Central Kitchen, but that was a really great experience. And just sort of learning, like, what is a kitchen real? Like, a kitchen can be anywhere.
Right.
And, we were cooking it was an old tire factory that got emptied out. And, we set up a walk-in. It was just sort of esoteric to think about what constitutes a kitchen.
Sure.
It's the people in it, but like, you need a walk-in, you need a dishwashing station, you need tables. We were cooking in those big paella pans for heat. So that, but when I was thinking about the question now, honestly, it's not an uplifting thing. I lost my uncle this year to Alzheimer's. And so learning about Alzheimer's and how it affects people and what it really is, and just dementia and memory issues and brain. I'm kind of surrounded by it a little bit. I've got some friends that have some issues. I lost a sister-in-law to PSP, which is what Linda Ronstadt has right now. It's a brain shrinking disease, and neurological stuff goes on. So that's kind of a little bit of what I'm learning about, but that's not so uplifting. I know.
No. I wear this wristband everywhere, every day. People always ask me about it. It's for a rare disease called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. A friend of ours who we grew up with, unfortunately, he passed away. It's a very rare, like 1 in 100 million people get. Deteriorates the brain over the years, and unfortunately, he passed away back in 2019. But I always wear this, and I always share, and that's kind of what sparks the question, is because it may not be something that people that's the beauty of the question, and that's the beauty of just because necessarily those things are just as important as the other stuff, the past and things like that, because it affects people, but it also has an effect on people that are very close to you. And I think it is good, even though it's something that isn't a great topic, or I don't want to say not a great topic, but something
not uplifting,
right? It's still important, and it still means something.
And they are discovering new things. Like I didn't understand, like, what. So what are all these things that are affecting brains? And a couple of them are proteins that get deposited on the tissue and sort of like cut off the circulation. So they're trying to figure out, like, why does the body produce these excess proteins? There's two different ones that seem to be causing dementia and various brain diseases. So this is a great time to be learning, because they really are discovering things about it.
No, I think so too. And I think it also makes you think, like, makes you wonder why things like charity and fundraising is important, because let's say we can figure out what that is, you're going to save a ton of people, and it's going to make people, less afraid or, scared.
Right. And I think also it's good just to be talking about it. There's some people who have dementia, they're like embarrassed, and they kind of try to pass, and it's a real thing that happens. It's a natural thing that happens.
Right. No one can control it.
I think the more we learn about how to, I never realized how much I would say to my uncle before I knew he had Alzheimer's. I would say, like, oh, remember the time we went to the theater to see that? I would make him recall stuff so much. And when you find out that someone has dementia, you stop asking them to remember. I just had to, like, take that word out of my vocabulary and stop saying, don't you remember when?
Right.
Because you live in the moment instead.
Right, exactly. And that's hard too, because, like, it's something as harmless as just trying to catch up and be like, do you remember that? But it's not easy on the flip side either, because you recognize how it could hurt, or like how it,
right.
That's a hard part as well, because it's something so easy that you wouldn't think about, that you're like, oh, I really need to watch this here, because they can't, and it's not their fault. I completely agree with you there. Last couple things, because it's the holiday, I got 2 questions for you. 1, do you make your own gingerbread? And do you have any, secrets? Because I'm trying to win a gingerbread competition. And 2, what's your number 1 kind of like secret you would share of, like, the trade to help, at-home bakers, kind of spice it up a little bit?
So in terms of the holidays, I absolutely make my own gingerbread, and it's sort of
Love
a
it.
family tradition where, like, I make the gingerbread, roll it out, cut it
Sure.
out, and then set up the table with royal icing and all the sprinkles. And
Oh man,
it's like a thing my kids come do, and they bring their friends over, and we make little
nice.
houses. And yes, so the house just smells like, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove for the next probably 4 weeks. So
Any tricks,
absolutely.
any tips with gingerbread? Like, is there anything like you shouldn't do or should do?
Just make sure you bake it long enough, because
Take it long enough.
you want it to be crisp. You want it to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
sturdy. Otherwise, it gets kind of flexy and
yeah.
spicy. That
Okay.
would just be and don't like roll it thin enough. Don't leave it too thick, because again, it doesn't bake through then.
Makes sense. And then, like, what's your, I guess, what would be one of your favorite things to bake right now, or like something that just makes you feel good? That's like, something that's, nice.
It's a really common thing, but it's my mom's snowball cookies. They're like pecan,
No way.
brown pecans, and
Awesome.
balls, and you roll them in powdered sugar. And it's sort of not, and my mother's Jewish, was the funny thing, but it's sort of not Christmas
Yeah.
unless we make those, those rolled in powdered sugar pecan
like
balls.
it.
I just gotta have them. They'll be here. They'll be
Nice.
here in about a week or two. I'll be making batches of them. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, Gale, you've been such a great guest. I can't thank you enough for just sharing not only your backstory, but some great, values and also wisdom. I appreciate your perspective on things, and I thank you so much for joining. Is there anything else before you go that you want to share? Or
well, just one more piece of advice. Anyone who's
Here
out there who's thinking about getting into cooking or is in cooking right now, working professionally in restaurants, is just make sure you always wear comfortable shoes. That's the main thing.
Huge. I can imagine that.
So huge, because like if your feet hurt, you have a sour look on your face. No one's going to want to work with you. So just make sure your feet are comfortable.
And y'all are on your feet 24/7.
Oh
anyway.
yeah.
So like,
and just I was
future.
I was a size 6 when I started this business. I'm a size 9 now.
Wow.
Like, you're on your feet so much.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
You gotta wear comfortable shoes.
Great tip. That's a life tip too. Just always get comfortable shoes, everybody. Well, Gale, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You've been great. I wish you and your family a happy holiday, and a happy new year. And you're a friend of the show now. Well, can't wait. Hopefully we can talk to you again. And appreciate the insight to talk to your brother, Gary. I'll be reaching out. We'll be talking. But with that, we'll head to the outro. Gale, thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for reaching out to me. I appreciate it.
Of course. No problem. Have a good one.
Do some cooking.
Yeah, of course.